I don't know. After doing a couple of episodes where I tend to focus on the babes and a lot of the stuff that, they say or they believe, it seems like I might have been hitting at them in some way, or at least a lot of them might feel that way. And if I started listening to this podcast with the past couple of episodes, I'd probably be on their side as well. But for those of y'all that know me, you know very well that I don't do that. Which is why I have a clip that should speak for the babes, but also turn the tide towards the guys. And I am going to get into that, but of course, I know I probably should have started. Why the hell are my manners? Welcome to Breaktime on West Side, your number one Breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who still believes that running his mouth is a good form of cardio. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Raw Zone. I like to keep it short. I like to keep it raw. Now, while I was on IG about 2 weeks ago, I stumbled upon a very interesting video. And it was a woman who was busy talking about how a lot of the behaviors that a lot of women have that men speak so negatively of, it's the men that have enabled such to continue happening. And I found it to be particularly interesting, and I think it is something that should be discussed. So here it is.
Men reward promiscuity, they reward toxicity, they reward non-traditional values, but then they claim they want a good woman. And then you're like, this is strange. What they're saying and what they're doing is different. Look at what they're saying. They want good traditional women, but look at what they're investing in. They're investing in the woman with her entire body out, and the other things men will say is, I want a natural woman, no makeup. But you see who they're following on Instagram. It's nothing but surgeries, fillers, this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, you're saying this, but what are you actually investing your time and energy into and your resources into?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I found this to be actually quite interesting because it seems a little bit odd that, someone can come out and be like, oh, it's men that have a stake in this. It's men that enable a lot of this to happen, blah, blah, blah. And the unfortunate side of it is someone is going to come up and be like, you know what, this is a case of babes not taking accountability for that shit. And the thing is, there's a lot of guys that will rally behind them and they'll be like, you know what, yes, this is true. Babes want to be held and babes want to hold, but the one thing that they just can't seem to hold is themselves accountable. And I'd probably agree with them. It's just that I sat and I thought about this clip for a little bit and I asked myself, what if men are actually the problem here? Or at least, what if men are actually stakeholders in this entire cycle and problem and shit? And after thinking about it, it's very hard for me to say that whatever the hell she said was absolute bull. And you know what? After calling out babes for a bit and, talking about babes this, babes that for like the past 2-3 episodes, let me turn the tables on the dudes for a little bit. Because I do feel like men are to blame to some degree. And I am going to start shelving this blame and start dishing out responsibility because, if anything, if us guys are so fond of coming out and getting onto our podcasts, our male-driven podcasts, and calling out babes, we should be ready to at least take some responsibility and dish some of that responsibility to fellow men as well. So, let me go into that and say that, yes, probably she's right. Actually, she is quite right because when you think about it, dudes are the ones that enable a lot of this shit to happen. And I'm actually going to blame two main dudes for actually causing all of this to happen. One is going to be the simps and two is going to be the niggas in the red pill. Yes, the red pill dudes do have some stake in this and I will call them out in a little bit because in as much as they might seem like they're on opposite sides, they're two extremes of pretty much the same coin. Or the same side, to be honest. But either way, I am going to get to them. Because first we need to start with the simps. Because the simps are probably some of the biggest enablers of this bad bitch, let's go out and, post up pictures of our bodies fully nude and shit. And you guys can probably pay for it. Because it's the simps that'll pay for it. It's the dudes that don't think that they have a chance with this babe if they go out and hit on them in public that will go and pay for the Onlyfans. It's the dudes that have no success with women or that believe that, if they can try and be nice, probably they can get some. And, they try to be overly nice and give shit up, hoping that they're going to get some back with the babes. that are actually to blame for all of this. And it's very easy to point it out, which is why I felt I should start with it, just mostly because they're probably the easiest people to pick on here. Because, to be quite honest, they're the ones that spend their money on OnlyFans. They're the ones that'll go and like every single photo of some of these IG models that will post up bikini pics online. They're the ones that will follow these babes. They're the ones that will send the DMs trying to be nice, saying hi, 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 hi. Like, these guys are the ones that will do that day in, day out, trying to get with these babes in some way or another, which will sort of lead them towards shit like OnlyFans, which is almost like your online girlfriend and shit. And, that's an entire discussion for another day, because it's not something that directly affects a lot of the dudes and babes that are in this country, which is Kenya and, Nairobi to be more specific. But it does involve some of them, and there's some guys, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some guys in Kenya that actually pay for babes OnlyFans and shit. Although, that is something that probably should be discussed somewhere else at a different time, because I don't have any stats on that. But now, you look at the fact that these dudes are the ones, at least in now the local context, will send the fare. They're the ones that are willing to bend over to whatever the babe is saying. They'll pretty much kiss ass so that they can get ass. And that shit will sort of backfire in some way or another. But at the end of the day, the fact that these guys will devote attention, they will devote time, they will devote money and other resources towards getting a babe and fail, and babes know that they can do this time and time again, it does kind of propagate a lot of this bad behavior, or, in some cases, bad bitch behavior. Then you look at the red pill dudes, because they also have to blame in this. A lot of these red pill dudes, interestingly enough, were formerly simps. And a lot of these red pill dudes, they might not promote it in that they pay for a babe's OnlyFans, but they're the ones that will go and get a lot of these babes, shag them, leave them, and then talk about how they want a babe with a low body count. And yet, it's not like they're trying to get one babe to settle with and then try and maintain that body count at a low. No, they're trying to bang as many babes as they can, because now they feel that they're red-pilled and they're these top-tier dudes and they should be allowed to bang whichever babes, and those babes are still supposed to maintain a low body count, assuming that they're one of very few top-tier dudes, which weirdly enough is a lot of dudes. So a lot of these guys might act all red pill and talk red pill and talk about how these babes are giving it up a little bit too easily. But when you're in a world where for you to get into a relationship, you pretty much have to bang the dude, and you're being told that there's nothing wrong with banging multiple dudes because sometimes there's bad ones and those ones you don't count them in the body count. And at the same time, there's someone who's coming back after you've done all of this and they're like, you know what, you're a hoe because you've slept with over 10 dudes. Or, the fact that you're sleeping with multiple guys means that you're automatically not supposed to be considered wife or girlfriend material. Like, how exactly does that help? Because when you're condemning someone for something that you yourself pushed to do, and you weren't even trying to date this babe, you were pretty much just getting with her, she was trying to test the waters, you were trying to lay pipe, and you pretty much just laid pipe and you moved on and you were like, I don't really think I want to settle with this babe. How exactly do you think that these babes are going to end up with guys with a low body count? Because it's not very easy for a lot of babes nowadays to try something with someone and then still maintain a low body count. Let's be quite honest, it's not very easy. There's not that many babes that were fortunate enough to get into a relationship in high school and stick with that relationship for 5, 6, 7 years. There's not that many babes that'll do that. There's not that many babes that will have that and they'll move on and will have another long-term relationship with another guy. There's going to be a lot of babes that'll try their luck with a lot of different guys, probably because they don't know exactly what it is that they're looking for. And then because they're going to do a lot of that, they might end up with someone, but by the time they do that, they might have banged a couple of guys. And I'm not going to say that the babes are completely exonerated from this shit, but we do have to point out that when a couple of red pill dudes are doing this shit and telling guys to up themselves to get to a level where now they can pull the babes because they have money and then bang as many of them as possible, especially if they're young and in their early 20s, and drop them and then continue on. And even when they get someone and they're with them, they should also be allowed to bang around, and think that that won't continue or restart a cycle, then a lot of these guys are actually very, very misled. Because when you think that you're the only guy that's doing it, there's probably a couple of thousand guys that are doing it. Although, now that I've pointed that out, and I am going to conclude with that, let me at least make sure that the babes aren't exonerated before the episode is over, and point out that, yes, And as much as the guys have enabled a lot of babes to do this, the babes still have to take some blame for this. Because let's be particularly honest, in as much as guys might push for a lot of this shit, it's not like guys advocated for women going into the whore phase. It's not like guys were behind the sexual liberation movement of women that's there right now, or even the fact that babes should look at treating a guy and being there for a guy in sort of the girl-friendly, wifely way of the past as slavery. That was all the babes. And at the end of the day, it's you who chooses what information you get to digest. And yes, some of it came to you and it was a matter of the times and everyone was saying it, but at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself if you had to take that information or if you chose to take that information just because it sounded nice for you at the time. But all in all, let me just conclude by saying this. We as men need to take responsibility for the fact that we have enabled quite a lot of this shit to happen, at least today. Because if we sort of tried to carry ourselves kind of like in the 40s while we were just working, we didn't pay attention to the harlots and the whores, not unless if we were trying to procure services from them in a very secretive manner, then maybe we'd have gotten babes that were very giving and were acting a lot more decent online because they know that if they try to reveal themselves a little too much, the dudes will probably shun them away. But even then, we need to accept one thing that history has taught us, which is a lot of things that us guys do is usually for the sake of women. And in a lot of those cases, specifically for pussy. So if the babes were to change the parameters which we'd use to get pussy, we'd adjust to those parameters as well. Either way, I might be wrong about this shit, but I would want your thoughts on it. Because this topic does feel like it should be something that should be debated over. On IG, on Facebook, it is at Breaktime. On my side, on Twitter, it is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.